Okay, we're gonna make a Swiss meringue. And in making a Swiss meringue, we're gonna warm up our egg whites and our sugar. Get these up to 160 degrees Fahrenheit so that they get fully, sugar gets fully dissolved and the bacteria gets killed. I'm going to whip it up to full volume. I'm going to use this meringue for 3 different things. Today we're going to make a Dacquoise. And then with that, some of the meringue, I'm going to use it to make the chocolate mousse. And then tomorrow we have planned to make some macarons, so I'm going to make macarons with this as well. Each one of the recipes calls for a meringue, and a Swiss meringue will work fine for all 3. So we're going to do it, we're going to kill all these birds with one stone. I'm using my fingers here as my guide for temperature. But of course, we can always pull out a thermometer and double check to see where we're at. Right now it says 127. That seems pretty hot to me. So I'm going to keep whisking. Getting up around 140. It's 150. And I got 157. I think by the time I turn off the fire and bring it on over to my towel, that it will be reaching 160. Alright, so let's drop her on down so you guys can see what I'm doing. We're going straight in the mixer. I'm using a hand mixer because even though I have a KitchenAid, hand mixer is it's a lot easier to get our hands on. Okay, making Dacquoise, all we're going to be doing is taking a meringue, it's a Swiss meringue, and adding almond flour to it. Ground up almonds, almond meal, or almond flour, any of them will work. And hazelnut flour also works very well with this. But I'm just going to pour it in, and I'm going to fold this into this meringue. And as we fold, we're really just trying to get it to mix evenly and to be distributed evenly. Because as soon as this gets folded, I'm going to be piping it onto paper, and I'm going to be putting it in the oven, 340 degrees for about 12 to 15 minutes until it starts to get light brown. And we're pulling it out and allowing it to cool. Okay, so there we are, almond flour and meringue. Now, the meringue here is part of the Dacquoise recipe. So just follow the amounts that are listed in there. I'm using a Swiss meringue, although for a Dacquoise, which is going to be baked, it'll be perfectly acceptable just to whip the meringue cold without having to heat it. But I was going to be making Swiss anyway, so I thought let's just go ahead and make some extra Swiss, and we'll use some of it for the Dacquoise. Okay, I'm going to pipe out just an even pressure here, just little discs of this mixture. When they're big enough, I just stop squeezing, and it just cuts itself off. I try to make these about the same size. What I'm going to use this for is we're going to be putting some chocolate mousse with it and making something of a Napoleon for a dessert. So to pipe these evenly, just watch your pressure. The idea here is to get a single bead going around and around in a spiral until you're happy with the size, and then just stop squeezing it, it'll cut itself off. This way they'll be the same thickness, they'll bake at the same rate, and they'll all be about the same size. Okay, so there we go. These are going to go in the oven and let them bake for about, let's say, 12 to 15 minutes. Okay, for the macarons, we're going to be taking about, we're going to be taking some almond flour and powdered sugar and bringing that together. That is going to be mixed with some egg white, just 25 grams of egg white, and this is going to be used to make a paste. Now this paste is your base for your macarons. It's rather thick, so we are going to use the next step, which will be adding a meringue to it. The meringue, I prefer to use a Swiss meringue or an Italian meringue, which are cooked meringues. They tend to work a little bit better, but the French insist that you can use a French meringue, which essentially is just egg whites and sugar cold whipped together. Okay, so here's our almond paste, almond powdered sugar and egg white. If you were going to be adding color, any sort of food coloring, this would be the time to add it. For macarons, then we were going to add the meringue, and we're going to start by adding some of the meringue to this mixture and folding it in. This will help lighten that mixture, that stiff almond and powdered sugar mixture. Then we're going to take the remainder of the meringue and we're going to be putting that into the bowl and folding that in. Now, macarons are such an important part of French society, such an important part of French pastry, that the French have actually come up with a name for the mixing method used to create these. It's referred to as macaronnage. Macaronnage is a method that we use to mix this. Now, at this point, this is a very thick mixture. Macaronnage is a mixture, it's a process of taking this fairly thick mixture and knocking some of the air out of it, intentionally trying to knock some of the air out. So what we do is we just kind of very quickly and aggressively stir and I scrape down and fold it all back together again. What we're looking for here is we're looking for this mixture to be able to come right off of a spatula like this in a stream. They say that you should be able to make a figure eight. So what that means is being able to go like this, being able to make a figure eight. Okay, so this mixture is ready to pipe, and we're going to pipe this onto paper. The thing about macarons is that they have to be first piped and then they have to be allowed to dry. So I'm going to pour this mixture into my piping bag. Rest of that in there. Okay, put that aside. We're going to get our pan ready, and I'm going to snip off the end here, just nice and straight. And we're going to pipe out little macarons. What I do is I just pipe them until they reach about the size I want. They are going to spread, so I pipe straight up and down, and I just I stop squeezing and I just cut it off. Now these are going to have to dry, so it's going to take about an hour to allow them to dry at room temperature. You don't cover them, you just place them somewhere safe to let them completely dry. Now the idea here is to let them dry, form a skin on the top. That skin is going to keep the top smooth. It's going to allow them to have a beautiful appearance. It also will make sure that as they bake, they're not going to split on the top. Instead, what they're going to do is they're going to push up from the bottom. That's going to create a little foot, what the French refer to as a pied. And the pied is absolutely critical to making a macaron that has acceptable quality. If it doesn't have a good foot, then people will look down on the macaron and say that's not properly put together. So we're going to do that. We're going to make sure they're dried properly so that they will have that skin and they'll bake correctly. air bubble. You'll notice already they've spread and they have started to settle. I'm just going to give them a light tap. These are going to go and sit for about an hour, as I say, and then we'll put them in the oven at about 300 degrees Fahrenheit. In putting together our chocolate mousse, I have the chocolate and my remaining meringue. And I'm just going to fold these two together. This is going to form our flavorful base for a chocolate mousse. And as you can see, this is turning out to mix together nicely. Just going to mix it together, fold it until it's even. Now to this base, what we're going to be doing is folding in some whipped cream. The whipped cream then will form the lightness. It'll give it the lightness and the smoothness that we're looking for in a chocolate mousse. Okay, and in putting together chocolate mousse, we took some melted chocolate and added it to some of our meringue. And then what we do is we add the rest of our soft peak whipped cream. Add our soft peak whipped cream to it. And fold those two together. This is a unique chocolate mousse recipe in that it uses egg whites, which essentially is it's meringue mixed with melted chocolate and then lightened with whipped cream. Most chocolate mousse recipes don't call for egg whites. They usually have whole eggs and sugar, usually put together as what they call a pâte à bombe, which essentially is cooked eggs and sugar, eggs that are cooked together with sugar. And this one is unique in that it has the use of a meringue. But it just goes to show there's more than one way to do something, and this looks like it's going to be a fine mousse. I'm going to chill it. It has no gelatin in it, so I don't have to worry too much about it getting too firm. And this particular mousse allows us to let it sit and cool and be able to use it even later. So we're going to combine this with our Dacquoise once we get a chance to let those cool, and we'll be back.